So that's probably I think as good an answer as you're kind of going to get. Okay, but it's not completely satisfying if you're like me. I mean, some of the things he said, eventually God's going to, the righteous are going to prosper when the storm comes. Well, not always, right? So it's like generally that's true, and ultimately that I think that is true. But along the way, we have a lot of questions. We struggle. So this whole question of, like I said, he gave me the hardest thing to deal with in the history of philosophy and mankind and the church and everything. And that's this whole thing of how can there be a loving God that allows evil? And not just bad things happen next week, you have an argument with your wife or husband, but really some horribly evil things. They're going, without any politics involved, when 20,000 little kids get killed in Gaza, no matter who's responsible for that, how that works, those little kids are just innocent kids. They didn't choose that. So my struggle, and I think a lot of struggle for people, is where's God? We say there's a God, you can't see him. I talk to atheists, and I'm sympathetic with them because they're looking at this and going, I'm an atheist because I don't see any God in this. I just see evil going on. And so I can understand that. Now, I think there's more evidence that there's a God, than that there isn't. So it would take me more faith to be an atheist than a believer, okay? But I do struggle with it. So that's what I wanted to set up. Now here, let me just walk you through that. Oh, well, first thing I want is, what do you think?
With all of the airplane, helicopter things that are going on, all of a sudden now we're more aware because of media. We didn't have airplanes 200 years ago. True. We didn't know of the different catastrophes as much, but still, when things are going relatively well, it's really easy to easy, but it's not the same struggle to put your trust in God's plan as it is when just when things like this, that the gymnastics team and all of these groups of people suffering for no apparent gain.
Right.
I don't understand. I trust, but
those are a struggle. Now I don't struggle as much with those as I do the little kids, but they are a struggle. But nobody made us get on planes. Those are dangerous. Not as dangerous as Highway 49, but they are dangerous. And things can happen. Mistakes happen. Human error happens. So God could stop all that, but he doesn't. And that's the question. Why doesn't he stop it?
Because he gave us free will.
He gave us freedom, but he could step in when we go too far and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not allowing that. I'll allow most of the stuff, but not that.
He's asking to do this to learn what we could do to correct that.
That's right. There is a learning process in it, and I think, is it worth it, God? What we get out of it for all this horrible stuff that happens? Well, apparently, okay, and I look at my own life, and you probably look at your own life and go, I've been through some really tough things, and I would never have chosen those things to go through. I wouldn't even choose them now, looking back, even with what I did learn. But what I learned from them, I would never trade for anything. Okay, that's kind of the dilemma in life. Okay, but so what any other ideas on how you deal with this extreme? Like I said, it was just a few bad things that happened, bad days at work, and but the extreme evil that you see in the world.
The extreme evil in the county.
Like what?
I work at the court. I see.
Oh, you're seeing it all, yeah. I know. It's amazing. Yeah, we don't even see most of it. We see a few things. Yeah.
It's a struggle to continue to do it.
Okay, now here's one aspect I want to start encouraging you a little bit. First of all, what makes the news? That's right. Let me tell you when you start worrying. News alert. Man goes to work, does a good job, comes home, loves his wife, plays with his kids.
What's wrong?
When that's the exception, see what I'm saying? It makes the news because it's not what normally happens. There's so much good in the world. Most people don't do that stuff. It makes the news because it's so over the top bad and horrible that it's out of the ordinary. Then we see that and we go, oh, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Well, in some ways, but actually that's the exception. So remember that. There's so much good in the world that God is doing. He allows, for whatever reason, he allows some of this stuff to happen, even the extreme stuff.
BBC on Saturday night does a final 5 minutes of their broadcast of all the good that has happened. Oh, that's that they can put on.
Oh, that's so good. I know.
It's too bad they don't do it every night.
Yeah.
Well, if they did it every night, people turn the channel because they want to know what bad stuff's going on out there. I mean, we're all rubberneckers going by the accident, seeing what happened, you know.
I usually try to get the CBS News on Sundays.
Yeah. We all kind of have a dark side to us. I'm sorry, but we do. We don't want people to suffer, but we kind of want to see how bad it is out there, you know. It is interesting. And I think God's okay with that. He understands that we're curious about things. Yeah.
When I have the stuff that's really weighed me down, what would Jesus do? That is my mantra, which I'm trying to get through. And I think that when other people see my reaction, or it's on my immediate family, or just our response, I think is what we are as Christians need to be remembering, is that we'll always act with faith. And it's like
That's a good point. How and why do we respond differently than the gut feeling of there's no God, or he's a one mean SOB or whatever? And you even surprise yourself.
Yeah.
You go, how come I have this faith in light of all this crap going on?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? That's right. So that's one thing that God accomplishes, not only the testimony we get to be to others in drastic times, especially when you go through it, and they're going, how are you holding up in this? And you go, I don't know, but I am. And that speaks volumes more than Carl getting up here and teaching, or Norris or anybody else. That testimony of your own life. It says something to you, to your friends, to people who don't know you. Never minimize that.
You know, what I find interesting though is I handle the big discouraging things better than I handle the small discouraging things.
You know why that is? I got a theory on why that is. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because you're prepared to handle you're kind of prepared to handle the big things if you're staying close to God, but the small things can catch you off guard.
That's kind of that's a good point. What I'm thinking is, huh? Yeah. Well, we have trouble with the little things; they can pile up, and also, I have some control over those. The big things I don't. For example, I got prostate cancer. I can't do it. I mean, I can do treatment and we go checked and everything, but you know what? That's not something I can choose to, okay, I'm going to get a different job. I'm going to get a different cancer. So in a way, it's out of my hands, and I go, I trust you with that, God, hard as that is.
Yeah.
It's hard trusting you with, I need to love my wife more and be kind to her, and because I have to decide on that. So I think that's why the little things sometimes are harder.
There's not with me today because I think I can control that.
You wouldn't do that.
You know,
You should have been here this morning. Poor old Nancy, she was everywhere at once. I go, where'd she go now?
Like that thing you have control over is when you don't turn to God for answers.
it's a
Yeah.
The small stuff, it's like, oh geez, what am I gonna do about this?
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of
and sometimes
what
I
am I
think
do about this?
That's what I'm saying.
So
too small, which is not true, but it's like, oh, I can handle this. I've got this one, God.
And how's that working?
Well, you should plan B as far as purchasing.
So yeah, in some ways it's easier to trust him with the big things because they're out of our hands. Much as you hate them, you feel overwhelmed, but you go, I can't do anything about that. But these things that actually I'm involved in deciding, it's hard to trust God with that, but that's how we learn. Yeah.
It's like the master clock maker. He winds up the clock and it runs. We have to remember, breath we take is not because our heart beats because God's made it that way. He is literally making every breath we take happen. He is making every heartbeat happen. Because he's God. He does that with all of us. When it stops, it's because he's decided to stop.
He sustains us.
So he is in charge of
Everything. Yeah, that's right. And that's another one of the dilemmas. It's always been in theology and the world. If God's totally sovereign and can control and maybe even does control everything, how come there's evil? Why does he allow it? And not just the little stuff, but the big stuff. That's where it's hard. Well, in history, let me run you through some thoughts here. Well, first, one thing I wanted to say was, don't get overwhelmed by evil. And as you get older, you know more about it. You have a better view of life. I just talked to a young couple. In fact, it's Curtis's daughter. She just got married. She's in her early 30s, and they're just ready to live life, and they're not worried about Trump and Biden and all that stuff and wars and everything. They've got. She inherited 2 daughters from this guy, 13 and 11. So she's got her hands full, but she knows that, and they'll do good. But they're ready to go after life. Well, we have done all that stuff, and we sit around and watch the news and think and pray, and we know too much. And it's easy to get overwhelmed with the evil and just get discouraged. You go, this world is screwed up. Well, it was screwed up when you were young, too. You just didn't know it.
But you just know it.
You know about it. So it didn't change. You did.
Right.
But you're wiser now. And that perspective of, wait a minute, it's not mostly bad. It's mostly good, but there is some really bad stuff in there. And the question is, why does God allow that? And what's he going to do about it? So I've put down, there are about 7 different explanations. You can pick which one you want. There are 1 through 7. And this is classically the way people deal with evil and the existence of God. Basically, Francis Schaeffer said, when it comes down to ideologies or worldviews, there's only a few people in the room. In other words, if you let each person represent one of the views, there's only 3 or 4. You've got atheism, no God. You've got pantheism, everything's God and everyone's God, the cosmic consciousness. Then you've got theism, and that's that there really is a God, a personal God, who thinks and wills and creates. Outside of that, you don't have much more except agnosticism. And those guys have to go sit in the corner because they don't have a position. All they can do is sit there and say, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 4. That's basically all there is, views of the world. And like I said, the atheists, I'm sympathetic. I've had the luxury of being raised in a church, a Baptist church of all things, and although some of it was overly intense and bearing, and it kept me from, I think, enjoying life as much as I could have, it also protected me. We're celebrating our 50th marriage anniversary in just a few weeks, and I attribute a lot of that to my upbringing and my believing in God and believing you're committed to that no matter what. We had as much trouble as anybody. We've been divorced several times. We just didn't go to the, you know what I mean? You go, I don't know about this person, especially my wife. She wonders, what is this marriage thing? I married this goofball. But I think atheists they don't have that luxury. They weren't taught since a little kid about God and everything. And so they look at the world and they go, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. I don't think God's that mad at them. I think he's going, yeah, I can see why you'd think that. I still love you. I love you, you atheists. And in fact, I don't believe God sends people to hell forever. That's my position. And and I'll run into an atheist and he says, I'm an atheist. I say, why? Well, I don't believe in a God that would do that. I said, well, I'm an atheist too, because I don't believe in that God either. So you got atheists, agnostics, you've got this pantheism, that would be Buddhism and the Hindu religion, since the Hindu religion's the oldest one. And then Buddhism's about 500 BC, and then Christianity, Judaism was around a long time, Christianity, and then Islam's not till 500 AD. But, this whole thing of God is everything and the cosmic consciousness and everything, that's one explanation. Well, there's nobody there to police the evil. So you just got to embrace it, live with it, look past it. I mean, some principles of Buddhism aren't bad. They're going to work with life. And that's New Testament. Work with life. Believe that there's a purpose in what the perseverance. When you persevere, you become a better person. You learn. So then you've got the theists. So you got the atheists, the agnostics, the pantheists, and then you got the theists, people who believe in God. And then here's the different explanations I've come up with for people who believe in God as to why he allows evil. Number one, first one is he's not there. It's atheism. That would explain why there's evil. There's nobody to police it, or it's pantheism, or whatever. I don't think that. I think it's more likely there's a God than there isn't. Like I said, it would take me more faith to believe that. Number two, there's evil exists because he's there, but he doesn't care. Okay, he's there. This is the founders of our country, the deists. Jefferson and Madison and most of them were deists. They believed there was a God, but he kind of wound it up and walked away and go, hey, good luck. Okay? Well, they believe there's a God. They just don't believe he cares. He's too busy. Whatever. I don't believe that, but it's one of the explanations. That's how they dealt with it. And yet, Jefferson writes, we're endowed by our nature, or by our creator, that all men are equal. And that's endowed by their creator. So they believed in God, and it gave them a framework to work from, a belief system. So he's not there. He doesn't care. The third one is he's too weak. He's there. He cares. He's like Bill Clinton. I feel your pain. And I go, what good is God if he's up there going, I wish you weren't going through that. That's really bad. Well, thanks for your sympathy, but I need a God that can do something, right? So that would be the third one. The fourth one is God's evil. Okay, that was Descartes floated that when he started writing. He says maybe God's a cosmic demon, and he wants evil. He's a believer. He was trying to get people to believe in God, but he's saying let's look at everything. I think, therefore I am. He said, and he kind of sent philosophy off in a different direction. But I can't say that's not true. Except there's too much good in the world. If he was an evil God, he wouldn't give us all these good things. Most of it's good. Most of it's good. It seems like most of it's good, and he allows some evil and some really bad evil and has some purpose in it. Well, what is it? So he's not there. He doesn't care. He's too weak. He's evil. Okay, then there are four other things I want to present here, and these are all held by Christians. I'll run through them. One explanation is that God abandons people over to their evil and says, that's what you want? You can do that throughout eternity. I'm not going to do anything about it. That's the C.S. Lewis view. And if you read The Great Divorce, it ends with these people deciding to stay in hell where the doors are locked from the inside, and they're going off out into outer darkness and fighting each other and bitter and all that stuff. And God says, okay, if that's what you want, that's what you can have. Now, the problem I have with that, and it could be, I'm not telling God what he can do, is that now he's given up on them. He's abandoned them. And I don't think he would do that. I think he'd go chase them down to the farthest extreme of the universe forever, whatever it takes. Never, like I wouldn't abandon my kids, no matter even if they said, Dad, I hate you, and I'd say, well, I love you, son, no matter what. Even if they did a horrible murder or something, I'd say, I still love you. I hate what you did, but I love you. And I think that's God's attitude. So that's another explanation is there's evil, but God says, well, you guys committed it, and I'm just going to give you over to your evil, and you can just live with it for the rest of eternity. Okay, well, that's an explanation. Another one is he annihilates people who don't believe in our evil at the end of time. And interestingly, I hope it's okay for me to say this, both Roland and Michael Thompson hold that view. The annihilation view, because I've talked to them about it, and they go, I don't believe God's going to send people to hell forever and torment them. That's just too over the top. It would make him the meanest, cruelest being in the universe forever. But if you're taught that over and over and over, like I was, you believe it because you heard it so much. Okay. Now, woe to me to tell God what to do and not do. I'm just giving you the options. I personally don't think that's who he is, that he doesn't do that. And neither did Roland or Michael, even though they were careful about not sharing that, because if they're in a pastoral position and you got people who do believe that, you don't want to be creating problems in your congregation. So, when a guy comes in a church and be a pastor, he doesn't just get to teach whatever he wants and push that on everybody. He's there to serve the congregation. And hopefully he is in a line with, with the church he's at. I know some pastors that are not, and they just kind of don't say anything, or because it's their job, So
They're just for the money.
Well,
yeah, they when it's your job and you don't have anything else on your resume, what are you going to go do? I know some pastors that get out of the pastorate and they're guards, they're welcomers at Kmart, because you're older and you've done pastoring all your life. And if you shift to believe something different, the new people that you agree with don't want you because you're too new at it. And the people that you used to agree with don't want you because you've abandoned them. So this is a difficult struggle for pastors because they get locked into their job. But I love them because they love people. They do a good job. I know most pastors in town, and I'm not saying they have wrong motives. I'm just saying it's their livelihood. You don't, we've all had to make a living, and you don't want to mess that up at all. So he's not there, doesn't care, too weak to do anything about it. He's evil. He says, I'll just abandon you. All you sinners is out of here. Goodbye. Done with you. I'll annihilate them. And the problem with annihilation, that's to me, that's like the greatest violence. Why create a whole world of people that end up annihilating most of them? I go, what were you thinking? Why did you do this? Then you've got this eternal torment thing. That's the other thing. A lot of people go, there's evil in the world, and God's going to do something about it. He's going to punish them forever, and that's what they need because he's an infinite God, and they've offended an infinite God, and the punishment should be infinite, right? I mean, it's logical. The problem is, of all three of these, abandonment, annihilation, and torment, God has to, at some point, say, I'm done. I'm done with you. I've quit. I'm not going to try to save you anymore. Remember that verse? He desires everyone to be saved. Does he at some point go, oh, time's up. You know what? I don't want that desire anymore. I don't want to save people anymore. You can just go to hell, or I'll annihilate you, or I'll abandon you. I don't think so. That's not the God I know, honestly. But I don't speak for him. Even though you said, God told me what to say, he doesn't trust me.
once you say these things that we about.
I think he wants me to say things that get you thinking. Yep. That's on the front cover of my book, Thought-Provoking Commentaries. I just want you to think it through. If you disagree with me, I don't care. I mean, I just want you to think it through, get all the facts, and whatever you decide is okay with me.
Well, are you saying
Yeah.
that God will go after the lost sheep?
Yes, yes, he will. See, what I said is that there are people, and I was taught this, he's going to do something about that sin. Something's got to be done. Those people are sinners. He's got to go after them. And I go, yeah, he's got to go after them to save them.
That's true.
He says, I'm going to chase you down. He's the hound of heaven that will chase you down to the farthest aspect of the universe. And he'll never give up on you.
It's like,
You know, you've given us these different ideas or options, and they're good ones. But I think there's partial truth and partial untruth in all of them.
Yes, good point. Absolutely.
He has given us some basics. I will chase you. I love you. I will do everything I can.
Yeah.
Do everything I can, and I can do everything to get you close to me. We don't see it because we're not God. We don't see how he's going to do that.
Glad you brought that up, because that's the bottom line, is that I don't know. Frankly, there are people in this world, in this town, and religious people, they're absolutely sure it's one of these. And I go, I don't think you're as sure as you think you are. But you can think that if you want. I'm not you. I don't know. Maybe you know. I think we're all a little off. We're all a little right. I'm not trying to make it squishy squashy, but I allow flexibility. I'm careful being dogmatic. It's got to be my way, and because I feel strongly about it. Well, we all got strong convictions. But you go around town, all these churches have real strong convictions. It's charismatic, it's Lutheran, it's Baptist, and they're really sure that they're right and everybody else is close but no cigar, right? And that's not true. And that's one thing I like about American Baptists. They're very flexible. They're not, it's not wishy-washy. They're flexible. There's a flexibility. You don't even have a doctrinal statement. Good for you. Trust people alone with God, with the Bible, or even without the Bible, and be there for them and love them and encourage them. You don't have to impose a doctrinal statement on them, but we do that to people. Some people want it done to them. I don't know, but these,
Because they make.
that's right. So it could be a combination of these somehow. I don't know. But here's after 75 years today, here's my conclusion. You want to hear my doctrinal statement? 3 points. 3 points. Number 1, God loves me. Number 2, I love him. Number 3, I need to love others. Done. That's it. I can't explain all the other stuff. Even this stuff I just gave you, I'm just telling you, that's what's out there. People have tried to explain this and this way and that way and get dogmatic about it. And I go, you know what? I don't know. So I'm partly agnostic. I want to write a book called The Agnostic Believer. No, really. Because I'm not a believing agnostic. I'm an agnostic believer. I believe, but frankly, I'm a little agnostic. I don't know. I don't know for sure. And that's okay.
If you're willing to listen.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a guy who wrote a book called The Sin of Certainty. And his premise is God doesn't want your certainty. He wants your trust. If you figure that one out, you'll quit chasing getting it all figured out and lined up. And I agree with my pastor and my parents were right. And God just says, come and trust me. So just from a personal note, I spent from age 22 till now, I always felt like when I was 22, my life got messed up, not bad, but got my heart broken. And I go, oh man, I'm not running my life right. Well, it's because God had my wife waiting for me. But I remember just concluding, because I had a Christian background, but I didn't know much about it. I thought, God, I need you in my life. I'm not running my life well. At 22. And I remember people saying, oh, you'll get over that. I said, I don't think so. This is different. This is really different. That burden got lifted of me, that hurt and pain. It was gone because of the new perspective. And then I thought, God's got something for me. So I spent my whole life wanting to be a pastor wannabe, wanting to be a pastor and went to seminary and all that stuff. And by age 60, God showed me, Carl, I do have something for you, and it's not It's not a thing. It's not an activity. It's a relationship with me. That's what I had for you. And I got it. I go, oh. And then he says, okay, now that you see what I had for you and you're enjoying it and you're living in it, I'll let you write some books, whatever those are worth. It's been enjoyable. It's been engaging. It's kind of what I wanted to do all my life. But those books are not what God had for me. There's just an outcome of it. It was knowing him and walking with him each day. There are people who know about God and they don't know him. I mean, they know him, but he's this thing. He's this set of doctrines and somebody to be afraid of and everything. And Mike Rao said, I'm more afraid, he's gone now. I'm more afraid of a mosquito than I am of God. No, he meant it. He said, I have nothing to be afraid about in God. Now, I revere him, I worship him, I honor him, but I'm not afraid of him because I know he loves me and will always act in my best interest. This is a big shift for Mike because he was raised pretty legalistic too, Church of Christ like me in Baptist church. So anyway, that's the spectrum of things out there. I thought you'd find it interesting. And you got to pick. If you don't pick any of them, you're an agnostic. That's the default. Be sympathetic to your atheist friends. They're doing the best they. And in a way, there's a faith in atheism. Not only is it they believe there's no God, which is a big faith, but also they're saying, I believe God can't be like that. So in a way, they have a strange kind of faith in the real God, I think, without them realizing it. What are you thinking?
Are some of all they do is they walk around doing, the atheists I've known, all they're doing is walking around doing blessings, you know what I mean? They're doing good deeds for people all the time.
Yeah, they're kind of trying to earn their salvation too.
It's like,
They're
doing
trying to
like,
find
well, there's no
God.
God, but
Yeah, their God is intellectualism, and they figured it out. And they look at, trust me, folks, Christianity has a lot of problems. The Bible has problems. It ain't none of it's perfect, and they see all that stuff, and we never talk about it.
I am by no.
So they're going, you guys aren't real about your own faith, and sometimes we're not, and that's why they just go, if you guys would get real and recognize some of the problems, which I've done, and I go, what happened to me is I recognized the problems with my parents, who I love, but they weren't perfect. My pastor, home pastor that I grew up under, he turned out to not be perfect. The Bible turned out to not be perfect, great as it is. I mean, I study it and I read it and write about it and everything. It's got some problems because it's human. It's got a human element to it. Everything, the church, you know how flawed the church is. Can't even get the printer working. I mean, geez. And
Get the license straight.
what it did, now some people that turns them into agnostics or atheists, it pushed me upward. All of a sudden, God got bigger. He's bigger than my parents. He's bigger than the church. He's bigger than the Bible. Believe it or not. I don't think the Bible's equal with God. I don't elevate it to God. It's very good and it's very important. But God alone is perfect and good, and you can totally trust him because he'll never fail you. Okay? That's what it did for me. It actually increased my faith in God. At first, it was very devastating. I go, what are all these problems? Nobody told me about this stuff. I write about that in my commentaries. I wasn't told everything. Then I go, wait a minute. This is better than I thought. God's bigger than I thought. He's better. He's perfect in every way. Remember Mary Poppins said that tape practically perfect in every way? Well, God's measurements way up. He is perfect in every way, okay? He's even better than Mary Poppins. So anyway, that's kind of the spectrum. Do what you will with it. I think you've already come to your conclusions. But if you're like me, you struggle with the kids, God. The kids, the innocent kids. You got kids that lose their parents. They lose their leg. They're angry and bitter. They're going to grow up little terrorists. It's just the whole thing is just so sad. I can hardly stand it. But then I think, well, let's see now. You got two choices. God's smarter than me, or I'm smarter than him. Let me think. Okay, so I go, God, I don't know, like you said, God, I let you be God. I trust you. You love me. I love you. I'm going to love others. That's about as far as I need to go with it. The rest of it, have fun writing some books. Right? So I just want to encourage you that get your view, go to God and get your view of him and ask him, God, I want to know who you are. You think he's not big enough to show you who he is in spite of what's being said out there? That doesn't mean they're all wrong. It just means you need to know for yourself as you walk with God. God, because I asked him once. I was walking down the street and I said, it's about 10 or 15 years ago. I said, God, I remembered Richard Nixon saying the American people need to know if their president's a crook. I remember saying that and I thought, God, I need to know if you're somebody who does never-ending torment on people. Are you a tormentor? I need to know. You know what he said to me? There wasn't a voice, but it was as if I stopped and as if he was saying, Carl, haven't you been with me so long? Since you were a little kid? Weren't you the little 7-year-old that wondered when you first heard about hell? You wondered if that can't be true. I remember at 7 years old, I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like God. And the second thing I thought is, I hope my parents are wrong. And then I went and played baseball. No, 7 years old. I remember having those two thoughts. And it's like God was saying, you know me. I don't do that stuff. Even when Abraham, when he took him up on the mountain to kill Isaac, what did he do? He stopped the knife. He says, I don't do work that way. I don't do violence. Then the best way to show you is let you go all the way to the end and don't kill your son. I don't do that stuff. I didn't act in violence against my son on the cross. You guys did. He wasn't. I remember looking for the verse, God pours his wrath out on his son. It's not in the Bible. It wasn't in the Bible. It was what I was taught in my life. He didn't pour his wrath out on his son. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit came to redeem mankind and take sin on. They took the bullet of sin. Jesus wasn't taking the bullet from the Father. He says, I don't want to shoot these people. I want to send them to hell. And Jesus got in the way. No, it was sin that kills us. It's sin that separates us from God. And God says, Jesus is going to come. He's going to take all your sin on himself. So you're free now. You're forgiven. Man, if you catch a glimpse of that, you will never fully appreciate how free you are. You are. You're free. You're a new creation in Christ. Perfect. You're perfect in Christ. Now, I know you're not perfect, and you know you're not perfect, and your spouse does, and that's true. That's part of the dilemma. But you are perfect in him right now, today, and will be forever. And someday, sin will be gone. Evil will be gone. He's going to leave you with this one thing. It's a couple of times in the New Testament says, God will reconcile everything to himself, everything in heaven and earth. Well, that's pretty final. That's what he's going to do eventually. And once we get there, and all the little kids that were abused and all that stuff, they'll understand. They'll realize they were part of his grand plan to make everything right. The word justice in the New Testament, it doesn't mean to get back at somebody. The word justice means to make things right. And God's going to bring ultimate justice, which is making things ultimately right. That's how big he is. And that's the God you can trust every day. I mean, if that doesn't free you and make you happy and take the burden off you, I don't know what else can. That's just my take. Now, there are people who disagree with me, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. Okay, that's all I got.